as a company, Pruvit actually aims to enhance ketogenesis, and they're the only company that does it on a 24-hour system. So the top 2 ways that we increase ketogenesis, the number 1 way is to promote a metabolic state that induces ketosis, that induces ketogenesis, that induces the production of endogenous ketones. Second, will be mitochondria and fat burning capacity. Third will be substrate, or what you're consuming. If you look at American Dietetic Association, they recommend 60% of our diet is carbohydrates. Well, if you're doing that, the majority of your fuel is going to be from carbs. And if you have a lot of carbohydrates, your brain is actually going to run almost entirely off of glucose. So if I'm eating carbs all day, my brain will run almost entirely off of glucose. In fact, your brain, if you're eating carbs for the majority of the day, will use about 120 grams of carbohydrate a day. That's 60% of resting carbohydrate needs goes to your brain. So when I'm what we call carbohydrate adapted, not keto adapted, my primary fuel source for my brain is carbs. My brain's gonna run off carbs, which is a less efficient fuel, and I don't need ketogenesis. So what happens if all of a sudden I restrict carbohydrates? Now, ketogenic diet, for example, I'm only eating 5% carbohydrate. Or if I'm fasting, if I restrict carbohydrates, now carbs lower in my blood. And what does that mean? Well, if carbs lower in my blood, it feels like I got unplugged. I don't have as many carbs going in my brain, and I feel like I'm unplugged. What happened to me? My energy goes down. I feel weak. I start forgetting things. Some people refer this as classify the experience as brain fog. Now, if you restrict carbs and you go a couple months down the line, people go, I went from being unplugged to now I feel like I got plugged into an efficient energy source. I feel better than I felt before. I feel amazing. My energy's super high. What's going on, right? Well, when I restrict carbs, I'm triggering ketogenesis. And after a month, 2 months, 3 months, my ketone levels are so high that I have more energy than when I was on a carb diet. What triggers these adaptations in what we call ketogenic adaptations is depleting carbohydrate source. Your body has maybe about 1,600 calories worth of carbohydrates in its body, maybe 2,000. In fact, you have about 1,600 calories in your muscles and maybe 400 calories in your liver. So your liver, that 400 calories in your liver, when it runs out, your blood sugar lowers. When that happens, when your liver is depleted of carbohydrate source, and maybe that's about 50% of your liver gets depleted after an overnight fast, when that happens, basically my liver goes, oh no, I am out of glucose. What am I gonna do, right? Maybe I could start breaking down muscle, I don't know, and then that stops working. What am I gonna do? If I'm out of glucose, my brain needs to continue to function. My brain's a constantly running machine. What am I gonna do? And that's when the liver gets smart. And really, primarily only under those conditions does the liver start to say, I need to produce ketones. I need ketogenesis. So how does that occur? Step 1, carbohydrate restriction. Ketogenic diet, low carb diet. Number 2, when carbs are restricted, my blood glucose lowers. What's the hormone, guys, that gets released when I eat glucose? It's insulin, right? When insulin lowers and glucose lowers, fat burning is elevated because insulin stops us from burning fat. And when insulin's low and glucose low, fatty acids rise up in the blood, they go to the liver, and the liver converts those over to RBHB, the same RBHB that we find in naturally fermented keto net.